All right. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Shut that real quick. All right. So go ahead and get your questions posted on there. If you're new to office hours, just want to let you know I start taking questions up to an hour before. So today's office hours is at 5 p.m. Eastern time. So you can start posting your questions at 4 p.m. Eastern time, and those will be the questions that I start with. So Dave P, for example, posted his question at 3:49 p.m. that I'm actually going to be starting with Ed's question. So Dave P, if you're still on here, go ahead and repost your question, and I'll start with that as possible. I might go back to that question if I run out of questions, but just to make sure you get your questions answered, make sure that you do that. So Ed D posted, said, "Hi Q, I've been working through the lag and move section, specifically the stick behind the ball and tennis racket drills. Feels great. I'm starting to get FSL for Chaffley and really compress some shots. Problem is with tennis racket, I'm hitting huge hooks. I wonder if it makes sense to feel the shallowing at transition, then twist the face a bit closer to impact to avoid closing too much." So basically, let's talk about what causes a hook. A hook is just caused by the club face being closed to the club path. So, or a hook, or a toe strike is what can cause that. So basically what that means is my club face, or the direction my club face is pointing, so it can be pointing to the left, to the right, is closed to the direction the club head is moving through impact. So when someone talks about an in to out swing, so I'm swinging from inside to outside, that would be a club path that would be moving for a right-handed golfer out to the right. Someone who's swinging out to in would be kind of a club path that's moving to the left. If you're on plane, it's going to be zero, right? The club plane is going to be zero as you're coming through. So the only thing that needs to happen for the ball to hook is the face just needs to be close to the path. Now, you could be shallowing it too much, and or you could be closing the face too much. And all you likely need to do is straighten it out. So there's actually a video later on in the move course where Clay goes over how to turn those into, I believe it's either the last video or the second to last video, where Clay talks into how to turn those hooks or draws into more straight shots. But basically what you want to do, you don't want to necessarily do the squaring of the face later. You probably just need to do it not as much. So instead of really turning that handle down as much as you can and shallowing out the club as much as you can, you just do it a little bit less once you do that. And that's basically what that video is all about in that section. So for those of you who aren't familiar with what the tennis racket drill is, I actually have a tennis racket here handy. And basically what it is it's a really great way for you to focus on if you're really struggling with that flip and getting some forward shaffling. The move course is one of the biggest reasons why, or the biggest helpers to help you get forward shaffling. That and the straight line release course, the lag course is big with that as well. But a lot of it is the move. So what the move does is it gets you to where you're shallowing out the club. So what does that mean to shallow the club? Well, what that means is that in the transition, when I'm coming down, I want to have this club on a little bit of a flatter plane here when I'm coming down. If I'm coming down steep, what ends up happening is I have to make a compensation in the downswing to get that club to come back down on plane. So if you imagine, if I draw a line from the golf ball at address all the way up my elbow, we call this the elbow plane. It's not an exact representation of what the swing plane should be in the golf swing, but it's pretty darn close. It gets you pretty darn close. So if I have this club in this steep position, and I know this is a tennis racket, but if I have this club head's way up here. If this club is in this position, then I have to somehow get it down here. And in order to get that club down there to where it's on plane again, I'm typically going to stand up. And when I stand up, what do I have to do to get to the golf ball? I've got to flip, right? Because otherwise I'll miss the golf ball. I got to flip and extend and fully extend my arms out and not rotate. That's what I have to do. So that's typically the reason why a lot of people flip, is because they're coming down steep. So what we got to do is we got to get that club shallowing out. Well, you can overdo it, and that might be what Ed's doing. Ed might be shallowing it out, but he might be like this. And if you look, if I grab the club and kind of get in that same position, if you imagine, going down from the ball all the way up my trail elbow here, you draw that line, and I have this club, and it's, getting that club relatively on plane, but then I get it way under like this. Now that club's dropping way underneath, and I'm swinging way too much in to out. And I could have my face actually square to the target at impact, but if my path is moving really a lot in to out, my face is going to be very closed to the direction that the club head is moving, and I'm going to end up hitting that hook. So that could be what's going on there. The other thing that we do in that tennis racket drill is we get the club shallowing out. So we try to get the strings pointing to the sky, and we have you exaggerate this in the tennis racket drill. Pretty much every drill that you're ever going to do, if it's an effective drill, there's typically going to be some exaggeration to get you into the right position. You're going to be trying to overdo it, because the reason why you want to do that is because it is so much easier to overdo something than ease off of it, rather than to try and get there little by little by little. Try to really, really exaggerate it, and then once you get to where you want to go, then all you have to do is ease off it. It's a much faster way to get to where you want to go. So what we do is we get that shallowing out. We're getting the strings feel like we're pointing to the sky. Then that second part of the move is the squaring of the face. So that is from turning this handle with the lead wrist and with the trail wrist. So that's going to come from the lead wrist. It's going to be doing a bowing action. This is called wrist flexion. And that's where I'm bending at my wrist to where my palm is pointing more toward my elbow. So if you see there, if this the back of my hand here represents the club face and these strings represent the club face, if I turn that, see how that closes the club face? It's that same kind of thing you want to do with the golf club. Same thing with the trail hand. The trail hand, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to actually go my knuckles back toward my elbow. This is what's referred to as wrist extension. And that's going to get you to where you're closing the club face as well. So we're doing both of those things. So we're shallowing out the club, we're turning that handle. And then from here, this is a very powerful position that's going to allow me to stay in my posture, because I don't have to make a compensation in the downswing to keep that club on plane. And it's going to allow me to square the club face at impact when I get forward shaftling. Because if I'm used to coming into contact like this, so I'm breaking down my lead arm, I'm pushing this club through, and I were to just push my hands forward, well, look where their club face is pointing. It's pointing a mile to the right. So if I get in this position with forward shaftling, I have to turn the handle down to square it up. And when you turn the handle down, that's pretty much closing the club face. You're going from that club face being open to turning that handle down, which squares it up. But if you do it too much, you go past squaring it up and you get to where you're closing it. So that could be what's going on as well, is that you're coming into contact and you're overdoing the squaring of the club face. The other thing that can happen is that we do this turning of the handle down, and we're doing it with the lead wrist, but we're not really doing it with the trail wrist. This is what I see all the time. People that are working on the move who complain to me about hitting hooks, is because they're still flipping the club. They're shallowing the club maybe, and they're turning the handle down with the lead hand, but they're not doing it with the trail hand. But the trail hand is flipping the club through. Well, if you turn the handle down and flip through with the trail hand, look what happens to the club face. So if I'm coming into contact, I'm turning this handle down with my lead hand, but then I flip with my trail hand. This is super exaggerated. I mean, obviously the club face is pointing, way that way, but that's basically what's going on. So I'm pushing through with my trail hand and I'm bending the handle down. That club face is pointing straight down. So that could be what's going on as well, is that you're not really getting the forward shaft liner. Maybe you're not shallowing out the club. You're just you're coming down steep still, but you're turning down the handle, and then you're coming through contact, and you're still having to flip through contact, but you're turning that handle down so the club face is slammed shut. So it's hard to say exactly what's going on there. You have to look and see what's going on camera. So here's the steps to know. Look at your camera or look at your video from face on. See if you've got forward shaftling. See if you're releasing this club out in front about 45 degrees. To see where that club is releasing, you'll draw a line when this club is coming through. It's splitting the forearm. So see how the club is splitting the forearms here? that's where it's going to be splitting the forearms and pointing straight into the sternum. If I go right here, this club isn't released yet. The club is kind of pointing up my lead arm. If I'm right here, that club has already been released. It's pointing up my right arm. It needs to be right in the middle, just like that. That's where that release point is. We want that to be happening 45 degrees out in front. If you're seeing that happen 10, 20, 25 degrees in front of the golf ball, that's an early release. You're likely just turning the handle down too much or flipping through contact along with turning the handle down. And that's what's getting the club face shut, which is causing the ball to hook. So if that's the case, make sure that you're shallowing out the club. So you got to check these checkpoints on the swing and see what's going on and then adjust accordingly. But hey, if you're actually over shallowing out the club, you've got tons of forward shaft lean, and you're turning this handle down too much, then you need to go to that last video of the move, which is going to get you to where you're toning down those things. So shallowing out the club less, turning down the handle less, to get that to where it's calibrated and to where you're getting some forward shaft lean along with a square club face and a swing that's on plane. All right, so Ed D had another question. Said, on lower body move from the top, I feel a squat like a box out move. Then a rotation of my thighs and hips till left pocket is to target. Then a push of I foot to clear. And right behind that, an extension of the hips to the target. Correct. Yeah. So basically in the downswing, you're getting to your lead side. You're getting that, you're really using your legs. You're kind of getting out. It's almost like you're sitting back in a chair a little bit. Those are all great feelings to have. Feelings are just feelings. Reality is on camera. So you got to look on video to see what's going on. You can feel like your hips are to the target, but your hips might be like that, right? So you got to look on video to see what actually is going on. You feel all these things. They might not be the best things for you. If a tour player, who doesn't have any issues getting forward shaft lean and things like that, if they feel like they're squatting and they're boxing out and doing all these kinds of things that you're talking about, they may actually overdo it and be way too much on the other side. So feels, you got to match it up to what the reality is that you want. So what you want to see is a good weight shift to the lead side. You want to see the hips roughly about 45 degrees open at contact. You want to see a good compression line at contact. You want to see your hands coming through with a square club face and some good forward shaft lean. A good impact position as far as forward shaft lean is concerned is to see at contact, seeing that your hands are roughly in front of your trail thigh. If you're looking from a camera angle just like this from face on, in front of the trail thigh at contact, it's typically the lead thigh, right? Having your hands right in the middle of that is typically going to be a pretty good impact position. That's going to have it where the shaft is leaning forward a good amount. It's where you're going to be taking about 30% of the loft off of the face, which is what, the average tour player, that's about how much loft you're taking off the face. So that's what I would be looking at, making sure that you're kind of getting into these positions. Whatever feel you have to feel to get into that position. If that feeling is getting you into the correct position, then that is correct. If it's not, then you may need to overdo it. If you're standing up as you're coming through, then you may need to really feel like you're squatting down. Like you may need to feel like you're sitting your backside on the ground. You may need to feel some really, really exaggerated feelings to get you into these certain positions. So feelings are one thing, but they have to translate to seeing something on video. You got to video your swing and see what's going on to get into those positions. But I always try to exaggerate the feelings, and then once you get to the positions that you want to be in, then that's going to help you. At that point, all you have to do is ease off of that to get to where you really want to be. All right, so let's keep on moving forward here. So Joe A says, I keep hitting fat shots with my fairway woods and sometimes my hybrids as well. So this is fairly common. I see it quite often. So a big thing might be setup. I see a lot of people, they play fairway woods way too far forward in their stance, which is understandable, right? We've all been told you need to play your driver off the inside of your lead foot or farther up in your stance. Well, our driver, we have the luxury of teeing that up to where we're hitting up on that golf ball, and that allows us to get some high launch and low spin numbers so that we can hit the driver as far as possible. But typically, fairway woods, we're not hitting off of a tee. Now, if you're hitting a fairway wood, let's say you're hitting a 3-wood off the tee, all right, and you can hit it very, very similarly to what you do with your driver. You can tee it up to where some of the ball is above the crown of the club, and that'll allow you to have enough space to work up into the golf ball. But when you're hitting a ball off the ground, you can't play the 3-wood the same way, or a fairway wood the same way, or a hybrid the same way. We look down at that club and we see it's got this big head on it, and we want to hit it the same way. We got that thought in our mind. I want to hit it the same way as I do a fairway wood, or as a driver. But we can't do that because you know what? The ground is in the way. I can't hit up into the golf ball because I'm going to hit the ground before the ball if I do that. So what happens is that you miss the ground and the club is still working up, and it works up into the golf ball, and you hit the top of it, and that's where the top comes from. So the first thing that I would do, and make sure that you're doing, look on video, see it in your setup, is to make sure that you're playing the ball. It's going to be a little bit ahead of the middle of your stance is where you're going to be playing fairway woods. A good way to kind of think about it is if I'm set up here, I like to have that ball, any ball that I'm playing off the ground, you can do this. You can play the ball straight down from your lead ear. That's going to be a pretty good place to have it. And that's going to put it a little bit ahead of the middle of your stance. Now, you can put the ball just a little bit further up than that, but I wouldn't go much further up than that. I would try to keep it straight down from the lead ear, puts it a little bit ahead of the middle of your stance. Slightly forward of that is fine as well. But I would experiment with that. Make sure that you're getting that good ball placement. The other thing that I see quite often is because we've got that ball teed forward, what happens a lot of times is in the backswing, we'll get to where we're leaning toward the target as we're going up to the top, because I know I've got to get to that golf ball. And what happens when I lean toward the target in the backswing? I'm actually typically going to fall away in the backswing, and that moves my low point, meaning this club comes down, it reaches a low point, and then works back up. That moves that low point back in my swing, and again, I'm going to be hitting up on the golf ball. So make sure that in the backswing, you are loading up properly, staying behind the golf ball, so that way in the downswing, you can get that shift to your lead side and then get to the golf ball in the downswing. So that's why I'd recommend doing. One, make sure that you're set up properly, ball straight down from the lead ear. Look at that on video. Two is going to be make sure that you're loading up, staying behind the golf ball, going on your trail foot here, staying behind the golf ball, having that nice spine tilt away from the target as you're going up to the top. And then the downswings when you're getting that good weight shift to your lead side so that you can make that ball first contact. You have to hit down on the golf ball a little bit when you're hitting it off the ground with any wood, even if you're hitting your driver off the ground. Some people do that. If you're hitting your driver off the ground, you can't hit it the same way you do off the tee. You've got to hit down on the ball a little bit. And I'm talking just a little bit. Your average tour player hits down on their 3-wood, probably 3 degrees, somewhere in that area. It's not that 3 degrees is not very much. If you think about 1 minute on a clock, that is 6 degrees. So half of a minute on a clock is 3 degrees. That's how much they're hitting down on it. But that's what you have to do in order to be able to make that solid ball first contact. So try out those tips, Joe, and hopefully that helps you to start hitting your fairway woods and hybrids much better. All right. So Dave P says, is my radar speed device measuring ball speed or club head speed? When I started the 20-minute distance fix, drills as was around 75. As I went on, I got it to 99 without a ball. Today at the range, I got 111 to 113. Wow. But was that ball speed? It's possible that it was ball speed. So I'm guessing you have a swing speed radar. It's important to set up that swing speed radar correctly. I don't have one handy, so I can't show you exactly how to set it up. But go to, I believe it's the section of the 20-minute distance fix where I believe it's the videos that aren't required, the suggested but aren't required videos that you watch. I would watch some of those, because one of those videos tells you how to actually set up the device. So what you need to do is you need to make sure, if you have the ball, you can pretend that my hand here, that my hand is the device, okay? So if we're looking at it from the behind view here, so if you're looking at it from the behind view, my hand here is the device. I need to have it about 8 to 10 inches to the side of the golf ball. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pivot and have it rotate in 45 degrees. And wherever the face of that device is pointing, that's where you're going to have it. Actually, you know what? Here's what I can do. I can use this this box of golf balls here to kind of show you. We'll pretend that this box of Snell's here is the radar device. So what I need to do is I need to set my ball down. So I have my ball down on the ground here, and Clay goes over this in the video. But if I have my ball, okay, and I'm hitting the ball this way, all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have pretend this is a swing speed radar, okay. I'm going to set this. I'm going to set it laterally to where the corner of this is 8 to 10 inches away, just like that. So that's about 8 to 10 inches. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pivot off this corner right here that's on the ground, and I'm going to rotate it in 45 degrees. So now the face of this box is pointing 45 degrees in, and that's going to be getting the club right there, right before it's hitting the ball. That's where you want to be with it. So now if you want to look at it from this angle, now I'm set up, I'm going to hit the ball that way. I'm setting it 8 to 10 inches away from the golf ball laterally, and then I'm going to pivot off this corner 45 degrees in, and that's where it should be pointing as it's coming in. So now as I'm coming into contact here, it's reading my club as I'm coming into the golf ball. We use these swing speed radars at our clinics, our distance clinics. I see people all the time, they'll set it up like that. So I got it to where it's 45 degrees in, but it's basically pointing right at the golf ball. If that is the case, if you have it pointing close to the golf ball, it's going to get confused between the ball and your club head, and it might spit out a funky number. These things actually are very accurate. It's just you got to set them up correctly. So if it's like that, it's going to get confused between the golf ball. The other thing that I see is they might have it laterally, but then they have it turned too far in. So it's basically pointing right at the golf ball or really close to it. And again, it's going to get confused. So I imagine if you started at 75 miles per hour, I'm not saying that it's impossible, because I have seen some huge gains, probably not that much. I mean, that's like 40 miles per hour that you're talking about, nearly 40 miles per hour. I think the most gains I've ever seen is 36 miles per hour. So I would imagine that that's probably getting confused between the ball and your club head speed. But what I recommend is just make sure that you have it set up correctly, and then it will likely end up being the right amount. But hey, if you're getting a 99, that's pretty darn good too. I mean, that's a 24 mile per hour increase. Typically, I think the average that we're seeing people going through the 20-minute distance fix and people from clinics, we're seeing somewhere around 12 mile per hour being the average. And of those people, you're going to have some people that are getting 6-8 miles per hour gains, and you're going to have some people that are getting 20 mile per hour gains. So that's basically what we've seen through doing the 20-minute distance fix, and the feedback that we've got from people. But yeah, 24 miles per hour would be highly above average, but I just make sure that you've got set up correctly. The distance will tell you a lot about it as well. Typically, you're going to get about 2.6, 2.7 yards for every mile per hour. So let's say that you're swinging 100 miles per hour. That's probably going to be about 260, 270 max is the most distance that you're going to get out of that. So if you go out to the course and you hit one really solid, about everything was pure, felt good, launch and everything was really, really good, and you got out there and it was 260, 270, there's a good chance you probably swung 100, 105 miles per hour. Definitely not 75. It's near impossible unless you're playing on concrete to hit a drive that far, unless you're hitting the cart path a few times at 75 miles per hour. So it sounds like you're on the right track, but just make sure that you have the device set up correctly. All right. So Alan B says, is there any feel or thought that I can use to help continue to rotate the hips through impact as opposed to stopping when I hit the ball? So yes, so there's some great feelings that you can have. One is you want to make sure that you get that pressure going in that lead foot. That's really, really important. You can't really use the feet and the legs to rotate your body unless you're actually putting pressure into that lead foot. And that comes from loading up properly and getting a proper weight shift. So that'd be the first thing that I would try to feel. So let me move the golf balls out of the way here. Essentially, what you want to make sure that you're feeling is that you're getting nice and loaded up as you're going up to the top. So I'm feeling the pressure on the inside of my trail foot. I'm feeling like I'm pushing down and out into the ground to rotate my body open in the backswing. And I'm getting nice and loaded up here, and I'm staying behind the ball. If you're getting in this area, I'm going to need to fall back in the downswing, and I'm going to throw my arms, and I'm not going to rotate my body. So I need to get nice and loaded up in the backswing. Number two is I need to get to my lead side. So in that last half of the backswing, I need to start feeling some momentum going into my lead side. I'm going to feel pressure on the inside of my lead foot as I'm starting that. That's what you want to feel that's fueling the downswing. You want to feel that your hip is pulling everything through. So I'm putting pressure into the ground. That's pushing. I'm pushing into the ground to rotate my hip open. That's pulling my torso through. My torso is pulling my shoulders and my chest through, and that's bringing my arms and the club into contact. You want to feel like everything's kind of pulling down from that position. That comes from, again, just like we talked about, pushing down and out in the backswing, feeling down and out with the lead foot. So down and then out away from me in that direction to rotate my hip open coming through. So I'm really feeling like I'm coming down and getting some flex in that leg. I'm getting some bend in that leg, and then I'm pushing into the ground to rotate it open. So that's the feelings that you're going to have in your leg. So this is all assuming that you've got the club in a position as you're coming down to be able to stay in your posture and rotate the body open. So what you'll need to check also is to make sure that you're not coming down steep in transition. So if you look at what that means is as I'm coming down in the downswing, when I pause the swing, when my lead arm is parallel to the ground, where is the butt end of the club pointing? If I look on video, where is that pointing at this point in the swing? Is it pointing inside the golf ball, outside the golf ball? Where is it pointing? If it's in this kind of position where it's steep, I'm going to need to make a compensation in the downswing to get this club to come back down on plane. So what most people will do is they'll stand up. When I stand up, I can't rotate my hips. I'm using all the energy that I just sent to my lead foot. I'm using that to stand up instead of being able to rotate. When I stand up, what that allows me to do is that allows me to the hands to raise, which drops the head back onto plane so that I can hit with an on-plane swing. Whereas if I were to stay steep, I'm either going to throw this club into the ground behind the golf ball, which almost nobody is going to do because, intuitively we want to get to the golf ball. So what a lot of people will do is they'll kind of come over the top to compensate for that. But the main thing most people do is they stand up. And when you stand up, you can't rotate. So you got to get this club shallowing out so that you can stay in your posture and continue to rotate through contact. And it also may be the way that you square the face. So if you're used to standing up, and when you stand up and don't rotate, you flip. If you're used to squaring the face with that, you can shallow the club all you want. But if you still square the face in the same way, you're going to stand up to make room for the club because you're flipping because you need to stay. Otherwise, you'll stick it into the ground. If you flip the club and you don't stand up, I'm just throwing that into the ground. So what do I have to do? I flip the club. That's how I square the face. I'm going to stand up and to make room for the club so that I can hit a good golf shot. So when you stand up, you can't rotate. So you got to check those things as well. So if you're not shallowing, you need to get the club shallowing out. Get the butt into the club pointing a little bit outside the golf ball in the transition area. If you see that you're shallowing and you're flipping, then you need to learn how to square the face properly by turning this handle as I'm coming into contact so that I can get forward shaft lean and a square club face. And that's what the move is. The move is all about getting you to shallow out the club and square the face earlier in the downswing. So I would look at those things. I'd first look on camera, see if you're coming down steep. And if you are coming down steep, you're going to want to work on the move. You're also going to want to see if you're not coming down steep, if you are shallowing out the club and you're coming into contact like this, where you're flipping the club through, it might be because either this is how you're used to squaring the face, and or it's because you're just not getting your weight shift to your right, to your lead side so that you can rotate the body open. So I'd work on either one of those, see which one helps you the most. If you can get the club shallowing out and get the body rotating open, then intuitively you might square the club face in the right way and get in the position you want. And vice versa. If you work on getting the club face to square in the right way, then you might rotate intuitively to get the club, to get the hands more out in front of the body here. So it's kind of a chicken or the egg situation when it comes to that. You don't know if you're shallowing out the club. You don't know if you're flipping because that's how you're used to squaring the face, or if you're flipping because you're not rotating the hips open, or if it's a little bit of both kind of mixed together. You got to test the waters there to see what's going on. So like I said, it's a little bit of what came first, the chicken or the egg kind of situation there. So you just have to test it. So if you want to work on the move course, you want to go to the homepage there by clicking the house icon at the top of the page. If you're an all access member, you can access that and then scroll down on the page there. You'll see a list of all the courses. We offer 20 plus courses on the website, ranging from, the power turn, the Top Speed Golf system, putting system, chipping, putting mastery, all the good stuff. And then we also have the move, which is all about getting some good forward shaft lean at contact. So that's most likely what's going on there. And again, if you want help with your swing, if you want me to kind of pinpoint and tell you exactly what you need to do, what we need to test and see what's going on, then I can help you with that. I actually offer a swing review program where you can send me videos of your swing and I'll tell you exactly what you need to work on. It's a really cool program. We do it through an app called V1 Golf. You video your swing through the app and then you send it to me, and I'll actually send you voice over lessons, drawing lines and showing you stuff on your swing, comparing you to pros, all kinds of cool stuff, showing you the positions that are good that you want to be in and where you can improve to start lowering your scores. So I do have a limited number of students that I can work with. I don't always have spots available. So if you're interested and you don't see spots available there, make sure to join the waiting list. And again, you have to be an all access member to do this. I don't offer this service to anyone else. You have to be an all access member in order to do this. I always give those folks the priority there. And I've never had any issue, having, I always have a wait list basically from members on the website. So be sure to check that out. Again, join the waiting list. So that way you get notified the next time I open up spots. So that way you can join right away. What we do is we'll send an email out to the people that are on the waiting list first, and then those people can sign up. The last couple times I've opened up spots, I've only sent the email out to the waiting list. I haven't even had a chance to send it out to everybody on at Top Speed, everyone who's a member of the website, because they've sold out. So you may not be able to sign up unless you join that waiting list so that you can get notified. So make sure that you do that. If you want to check it out and see what swing reviews are all about, Robin, our other instructor, he also might have some spots available. If you want to check it out with him, you can go to the top of the page there and just click Get a Review. That will take you to the swing review page where you can see what it's all about, see what you got to do, and understand how it all works. And then you can click to join. If you scroll down there, you can click to join my waiting list or grab a spot if one's available. Sometimes one will pop up every now and then that you can grab. All right. So Jim G says, if if you're measuring your lag when your lead arm is parallel to the ground on the downswing, would the lag angle be the same for a driver and a mid iron, like a 7-iron, or would the driver have a sharper angle? So let me clear something up there. So where we're measuring lag is where we want to see that sharpest angle. So that's what we call the max lag position. So as we're going up to the top here, we've got this angle between our lead forearm and the shaft at the top of the swing. And then as we're coming down, we want to be sharpening that angle. And we typically want to see that angle sharpening until that lead arm is parallel to the ground. That's where we want to see it the sharpest. Or a little bit after is fine. But if that angle is sharpest right here at the very top, that means that you're starting to release the club a little bit too soon. So we want to see, typically, you want to see that club, that max lag position is what we call it, where that angle is the sharpest. We typically want to see that about at this point in the swing when the lead arm is parallel to the ground. It's not always going to be that point, but that's a good place to have it. Now, can you have more lag with the driver than you do with an iron? Oftentimes we do. And the reason is that the club head's going to have more momentum. Now, I don't have a driver in here. My bag's in the other room, unfortunately, but I do have a longer club here. So here's a wedge, and here is I believe this is a 3-iron. So you can see the difference in the lengths of the club. I'm typically going to have more lag with the longer club because it's going to have more momentum going in this direction. So that's one thing that creates lag is momentum. There's basically 3 things that create that angle of lag, this sharp angle of lag here as we're coming down. Number one is, I think everyone knows this one, is that thumbs up position, often called wrist hinge, right? Setting the wrist. That's that position here. So most people, and you can just stand in right now, if you're watching this, you can actually test this yourself. Put your hand right out in front of you, just like that, and have a very neutral kind of wrist position, and then actually try to bend your thumb up as much as you can. So try to go thumbs up as much as you can without doing this with your wrist. Don't put your wrist in extension there, which is the knuckles bending back. Keep it relatively flat, neutral, but just go in that direction. So you can see there, if I have this club like that, I'm in a neutral position here. I can only bend it back about 20 degrees or so, something like that. So that's 20 degrees of lag. That's not very much. We actually measured all the tour players or all the major winners of the last 20 years just to see where they stacked up with the Top Speed Golf system. And we found that on average, your average tour player of those tour players that we measured, so these are the best players in the world, right? The average lag angle there, and this is with the driver, was about 55 degrees. We measured the driver with all of them. It was about 55 degrees is where we saw that sharpest angle there. So if I can only go 20 degrees, that's not quite 55 degrees. That's actually going to be 70 degrees the way that we measured it, because we measure it from the lead arm to the shaft position. So basically through the middle of the arm, where we would imagine the bones in the arm to be with this angle. So that would only be like a 70-degree angle right here. So where does the rest of that come from? Well, part of it comes from shallowing the club. So what that means is if I have this club straight up and down like this, and I bend it back like that, this is steep, right? We just talked about that a minute ago. If I'm like that, I'm steep in the swing. So what I need to do is I need to shallow it out. Now look what happens to that angle. It went from a 70-degree angle. I haven't changed. Mine still thumbs up as much as I can, 20 degrees. But because I'm shallowing it out, the way that it looks from that perspective is that it looks like the angle's gotten sharper. You can see I can go way down here. Now it looks like I have this crazy sharp angle here, but look at this club. It's very shallowed out. Now I wouldn't shallow it out that much. It would be more like that, but you can see there I've got a much sharper angle there. So that's part of where that comes from. Now, typically people shallow their driver a little bit more than their irons. And that's because we're hitting up on the golf ball. So it's a little bit easier to hit up on the golf ball when you shallow it out. So some people you'll see, they'll shallow the driver out a little bit more, and that will increase that angle as well. Now, next is the big one that really gives the driver more momentum. So there's two things that are going on here that give the driver more momentum, and this is what also creates that sharp angle. So you remember I talked about thumbs up as much as possible, and I talked about the shallowing. But now watch here. If I bring this club back and then I switch directions, so I'm going to bring this club back so that it has momentum going back behind me, and then I'm going to switch directions in the other way, and you're going to see how sharp this angle gets. So I'm going to go like this, and see how sharp that angle is getting as I'm coming down? That's that momentum of the club head. So the longer the club, the more of a moment arm I'm creating here, and the more momentum I'm creating, and that's how that angle is going to get sharper. The other thing that creates more momentum is typically with many players, including myself. Clay does the same thing. Not sure if Robin does or not, but I see this on tour a lot as well, is that we'll have typically a little bit longer swings with our driver than we do with our irons. And the reason is that we're taking a more aggressive swing typically with our drivers. We're going for a lot of speed. And with our irons, it's more of a tone down. We still want that speed, but we still want that control as well. With a driver, if I hit my driver 20 yards further than what I normally do because I took a more aggressive swing, that's perfect. That's exactly what I want. That's that one where I'm the closest I've ever been on that hole. Usually maybe I'm hitting a 9-iron, but today I'm hitting a wedge into that hole because I got a little extra boost because I caught it and I got a little bit extra club head speed from it. So, but with an iron, if I'm hitting my 9-iron, I want to hit my 9-iron on the number. I want to hit my 9. I know how far I hit my 9-iron, and I want to make sure that I'm hitting it that far. So I'm not going to take as aggressive swing. If I hit it 20 yards over the green, where I'm wanting to, with an iron, when I'm trying to hit an iron a set distance, that's typically going to be bad. There's what's beyond the greens on golf courses is usually not good. It's usually, where I play, it's typically brush, woods, out of bounds, water. There's all kinds of things that could be going on there, but it's typically not going to be good news going long. So that's another reason why you might see more lag with a driver, because it's a more aggressive swing. There's more speed. It's longer, so there's more momentum. And that's typically what's going on there. So a little bit more shallowing, a little bit more momentum can create that sharper angle. But that doesn't mean that you're definitely going to have more lag with the driver. It's just that some people do and some people don't. I wouldn't be surprised to see it a little bit more with a driver than you would with a 7-iron or a wedge for sure. So keep up the hard work there, but hopefully that explains exactly what needs to be happening there. All right, so Ed D says, I think your description of excessive into out is what I saw on video. So Ed asked the question about the move earlier. He was hooking shots when he was hitting the move. So you really just need to go to that video in the move course. It's one of the last videos in there. It's either the last one or the second to last one in there, where Clay talks about toning that down, toning that hook or that draw down to get that, or that overdraw to get that nice easy draw or that straight shot, so that you can have a lot more control with it. Yeah, so you're probably just swinging too much from in to out, shallowing it a little bit too much, and which is a good thing. It means that you were actually able to get into the position that you need to do that. Now it's the easy part of the process, which is just easing off of it to get to where you want to be. All right, so Tom M says, I struggle with crossing the line at the top with a cupped lead wrist and a flying right elbow. Would a cure be to simply point the butt end of the club at the target line at the top of the backswing? Of course, this would be pointed at the target line, but well behind the ball. Yes, so essentially, typically across the line is actually caused by the trail hand. So for most golfers, that trail hand, if you're a right-handed golfer, your trail hand is your right hand. And most right-handed golfers are, right hand is the dominant hand. So what happens is it's not necessarily because your wrist, your lead wrist here is getting cupped. It's because you're really pushing through with this trail hand to try to get a little bit more. You're really kind of strong arming it at the top. So you can see there, if I'm going up the top with my trail hand here, look what happens. This is what you're describing right here, is I'm pushing through with my trail hand. My elbow is flying, and that's making my wrist cup. So what you need to do is probably focus on this trail hand and at the top of the swing. What I'm going to feel like is as I'm going up to the top of the swing is that my trail hand is more relaxed and it's in a bent back position. So this is knuckles bending back toward my elbow. It's almost like I'm going up to the top of the swing. I'm a waiter holding a tray here at the top of the swing. So if you watch here, if I do that, as I'm going up to the top, I'm going to have that waiter position. Look at what's going on. My elbow is more in, and my wrist is more flat. And look at where my club is. It's not across the line at all. And that looks like an awesome position right there. So I'd imagine what's going on is you've got that straight trail wrist position, which is really trying to push that. And for some people, it's an intuitive thing to do because it feels very powerful, right? I'm really looping this club head, giving this club head a lot more room to create speed. But the problem is that it's putting your wrist in a position that's going to want to cast in the downswing, and it's putting your wrist in a position that's going to make you want to come over the top in the downswing. So it's just making it a little bit more difficult. So really focus on that trail wrist. Do some drills where it's actually just one club, where you go one arm only, club up the top, wrist or palm pointing up to the sky, and then do some swing through. Then put the left hand on there, do the same thing, wrist, palm pointing up. If you have this elbow flying a little bit, it's fine. It's just having that wrist in that bent back position. And if you're a little bit across the line, some people just have long swings. If you have a longer swing, you're going to be across the line. So that could be what's going on as well. If you think about John Daly, right? John Daly is not really across the line. He's just got a long swing. So if you watch here, if I get here and then I go past parallel, look at that club. See, it's not across the line. It's just going past parallel. It's just continuing on this circle as I'm going around. So you got to be careful with that. Across the line isn't always necessarily a bad thing either. You can be across the line and have a great golf swing. Freddie Couples, for example. Freddie Couples went across the line at the top of the swing. Pretty good player, right? So it's not the end of the world if you're going across the line. The main thing is how you come into contact. For some people, going across the line at the top helps them get the club on plane in the downswing. If they didn't go across the line at the top, they might swing over the top. But having that club in a good position where you're not way across the line does make it easier, does give you a little bit more control of the club head. So give it a try, see if it makes a big difference for you. But really focus on that trail wrist. It's going to be the trail wrist. Do some one arm only trail wrist drills, and then add the lead hand. But really focus on having that trail wrist bent back instead of pushing through like that. Instead of flat and pushing through like that. That's what's really causing that across the line. So give that a try. I think that will help you out quite a bit, and you might start hitting some much better, more consistent golf shots for sure. All right, so Joseph I says, I'm retired now. I'm going to purchase a new set of irons. So congratulations on the retirement. Awesome. I went to a big box fitting and was told I need 2 degrees flat lie. I'm short and immediately hit the ball better. They also suggested half-inch shorter shaft. I'm wondering, steel or graphite shaft. I'm 62, hit both about the same distance. They felt about the same. I like the Marvic or the Marvic Pro. Any help or suggestions? So what I would do is I'd just test both and see what works best for you. That's really what it comes down to. If there's really no difference, you don't feel no difference at all, I'll just pick the cheaper one, whichever one's the least expensive. Typically, graphite's going to be a little bit lighter, so it's possible you may get more distance with that because you might be able to swing it a little bit faster. That's really the benefit to graphite over steel, is that it's just so much lighter, and the processes, the manufacturing processes and things like that have come a long way to where they're pretty consistent too. That was kind of the knock on graphite shafts, is that they were very inconsistent, but the manufacturing processes are so good now that they're typically just as good as far as consistency goes with the shafts. From what I understand, again, I'm not a club expert, but very consistent as far as steel shafts are concerned. That's part of the reason why Tiger, even when graphite shafts came out, Tiger played a steel shafted driver for a long time, because the graphite shaft just wasn't very consistent. But then once the processes got better, he found he switched. Now he uses a graphite shaft and has for a long time because you can swing it so much faster, and they're just as consistent, if not more consistent in some cases, I think, than a graphite shaft. So see what kind of distance numbers that you get. But the only way for me to know that is to actually see what's going on a launch monitor. So if you went and had a fitting, and maybe go back and say, hey, I'm not sure if I want to get graphite or steel, and test it out between. If you're getting more club head speed and you have the control and everything with the graphite, then sure, I think graphite would be great because you're going to hit the ball further with a lighter shaft that you're able to swing faster. But if you feel more comfortable with the steel and you're okay with maybe a little bit of distance loss, or maybe you're swinging it about the same and it's not making any difference at all, I would, at that point, if it's no difference, and because one's going to be more priced than the other. Typically, the graphite shafts are going to be a little bit more expensive. Then I would go with the least expensive one to save a couple bucks if there's really no difference. So that's what I would recommend. All right, so let's keep on answering some questions here. I'll do my best to answer as many as possible. All right, so Ed D says, so I'm under the plane and flipping the right hand. Thanks to you, I will work on that. Yep. So that's Ed D talking about he was overhooking with a move. So I'd be, So it sounds like you're underplaying, and then also you're flipping, you're turning the handle down, but flipping, that's going to be a big old snap hook every single time. Because not only are you swinging into out compared to your target line, but you're also closing the face compared to your target line. That's going to be hook city every time. So make sure that you're getting the club to where it's shallowing out the right amount, and that you're rotating open through contact so you can get that club to release out in front with a square club face at contact as well. So continue to work on that. Again, that's probably just the last video of the move course that you need to be working on. All right, so Kenneth S. says, I recently completed the 20-minute distance fix. Definitely increased swing speed and driving distance. However, I now tend to dramatically pull with a slight draw my drives. What am I missing? So you might be coming over the top a little bit. It sounds like you might be a little bit too much upper body focused. So I would maybe go back to the sumo step drill, because what's probably happening. Let me explain what happens when you hit a pull or pull to a pull draw. What's going on is that your face is a little bit close to your path on those draws, and your path, if you're hitting a pull, is going out to in. So meaning a pull is caused by a path that is out to in, and then my club face basically being in the same direction of that path. So if I got my driver here and my path is going out to in, meaning for a right-handed golfer, it's going to the left, and my face is also in line with my path to the left, then I'm just going to hit a straight pull to the left. Now, if I'm coming over the top a little bit, my path's moving to the left, and my face is a little bit close to my path, then I'm going to hit that pull draw. So what you need to do, most of the time that over the top is coming from that really trying to get as much speed from the upper body and not really using our legs properly. So that's most likely what's going on there. It's hard for me to say without seeing your swing, but I would venture to guess that is the cause of what's going on. So we need to make sure that we're using our legs and getting the body rotating open so that we can swing this club from the inside and not hit those big old nasty pulls, but swinging over the top, because that's where the pulls come from. So I recommend going to the sumo step drill and working through that drill that's in the 20-minute distance fix. If anyone's looking for some speed and you feel like you're all arms with your driver, that sumo step drill is the best one to really help you get the legs involved. And maybe you're coming over the top as well. And a lot of times over the top is just from being way too upper body with the golf swing, which is normal when you're trying to get a lot of speed. A lot of the speed comes from the upper body, but we want to create momentum with the lower body so that not only can we get more speed as well, we can build that momentum, but we can also get that club working correctly down on plane. And to get that 20-minute distance fix, I imagine you know how to get it, but for those of you who don't know how to get there, all you got to do is go to the top of the page, click the instruction tab, and then go to the 20-minute distance fix from there. It should drop down a little menu there. You click on that 20-minute distance fix and go to week 1. That's where that sumo step drill is. It's in the week 1 drills. It's the second drill. I believe it's 1.2 in the week 1 materials. So Ron D says, I have a bad habit of swaying during the golf swing. Any suggestions on stopping the swing, especially moving my head? So what you need to do is make sure that you rotate your hips and push with your trail leg to rotate your hip back. So if you're swaying, that means you're going to start feeling some pressure on the outside of your foot. And if you see here, if I'm swaying, I'm not really rotating, right? So I need to feel that pressure on the inside of my foot, and then don't let it get on the outside of my foot, because if it does, that means I'm sliding my hip outside. Feel that pressure on the inside of your foot initially, and then push my hip back, rotate my hip back. You want to feel like somebody is got a rope attached to your belt loop here, and it's wrapped around your hip, and somebody is back behind you here pulling on this rope that way as I'm starting the backswing, like you're turning your hips in a barrel. That's what you want to feel like as you're going up the top. And that's going to feel like pushing down into the ground and out away from you. So I'm pushing down and then out away from me to push that hip back out of the way, like someone's pulling on my hip with a rope. And that's going to allow you to not stop swaying the hips, but get you to where you're turning the hips. It's probably going to increase your shoulder turn as well, because our shoulder turn is going to come from our hip turn. It's going to come from our torso turning in relationship to our hips, and it's going to come from the protraction and retraction of the shoulders. So if you are just sliding your hips, you're losing that hip rotation, and you may be only getting a shoulder turn like this. But if I get my hips turning, and now I get my hips turning, the average tour player turns their hips about 50 degrees in the backswing, and now I can get in that nice, good shoulder turn so that I can be very, very powerful. So work on those feelings. Keep that weight on the inside of your foot. That's where you want to feel it. Inside, and then moving to the heel as you get to the top of the swing. Feel like you're turning your hips in a barrel. Feel like someone's got a rope attached to your belt loop here wrapped around, and they're pulling on that as you're going up to the top. Feel rotation instead of sliding, and you should get in a better position. Last tip on this, open that trail foot. If I angle this down, if I have my feet kind of like this, maybe I have my feet kind of turned inward, or they're very straightforward. I may not be able to turn my hip very much, because when you're turning your hips, your hip is internally rotating. Your leg is internally rotating on your hip. So if I have a limitation here, then I'm only going to be able to turn so much, and then I might slide my hips. So if you turn this foot out a little bit, makes it a little bit easier to rotate and to also get that foot at an angle so that I can push out away from me, down and out away from me to rotate the hips. So try those things, and that should help out quite a bit with getting rid of the swing. All right, so I'll try to answer the rest as quickly as I can. I'm not going to be able to get to everybody, unfortunately. It's almost 6 o'clock right now. So James M says, Q, when you hit hybrids or irons, do you put more weight on your front foot, and what is the angle of your shoulders? So far, I gained 12 miles an hour on my swing. Thanks. So you're going to do the same thing with your irons. With the hybrids, it's going to be the same thing. I'm going to be very balanced with my weight at address. I'm going to be 75, 80% on my trail foot at the top of the swing, 75, 80% at impact on my lead foot, and then about 90% on my lead foot into the full finish. As far as angle of the shoulders are concerned, it's going to be the same. I'm angling away about 6 to 8 degrees. That's getting my shoulders about in this position right here. It's going to be the same whether you're hitting your 6-iron or you're hitting your hybrid. It's going to be the same. It can be a little bit more, but it's going to be roughly the same. All right, so Tom M says, speaking of the 20-minute distance fix, how long should I work on this before I see meaningful results? Actually, if you go and do that quick start, you should see results right away. You're going to see it in the very beginning. Most of the time, we see people gaining 3 to 5 miles per hour going through that. To make it fully ingrained to where it's second nature, after the 3 weeks, you should be doing pretty well. But you may want to keep on going through that. If you feel like you can get more gains, keep going through. Just keep on going through the course and try to do better. Try to do better on the drills the second time around. A lot of times, I don't know about you, But you ever watch a movie multiple times? I have several movies that I've seen multiple times. Every time I watch that movie, I notice something different that I didn't before. So a lot of times when you go through, if your main thing is distance, that 20-minute distance fix is definitely the thing you want to do. If you go through it once, go through it again if you feel like you got more in the tank for sure. And you may pick up on things that you didn't the first time that might make a big difference in you getting another mile per hour or 2 or 5 or however many it might be. So go through it again, and you'll continue to see results. But yeah, you're definitely going to get. Also depends on your definition of meaningful. I would say going through it one time. Typically, people are getting about 12 miles per hour. So that's definitely meaningful. That's 30 yards basically off the tee. So that's a huge gain. All right. So James N says this is a good time to have office hours. All right. Cool. Thanks. Yeah, we moved it here. I started doing some videos with Clay, some filming and stuff like that, and we wanted to be able to do it in the morning or the afternoon. Because I used to have office hours at 3 p.m., it was very difficult for me to be able to do it in the afternoon. So we moved it to 5 p.m. so that we could film in the afternoon if we needed to. So yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying it. It seems like we're getting some more people on here at 5. So that's good. Makes for a long day for me, but it makes it possible to shoot videos and do the office hours at the same time. All right. So Bill R says, you mentioned getting about 2.6 miles per hour with the driver or yards per mile per hour. Does that same ratio hold for shorter irons, i.e. an 8 iron? Also, does this driver path and face have the aligned in same direction to get that ratio? So that 2.6 yards, that's on a well-struck drive. So if you hit a big old slice, you're not going to get to, with a 100 mile per hour swing, if you hit a big old nasty slice, like a glancing blow on the golf ball, you're not going to hit it 260. It's definitely going to take off with that. Now, as far as 8 iron is concerned, it does not apply to the 8 iron. You're not going to swing your 8. If you swing your 8 iron with 90 some mile per hour club head speed, you're not going to hit your 9 iron over 200 yards. So it's based on what your typical loft is. It's not an exact number. It's kind of just like a baseline calculation, 2.6, 2.7, kind of an average. But yeah, it would not apply to an iron. It wouldn't even necessarily apply to your 3-wood, even though there's not that big of a difference between your 3-wood and your driver. It's just that your 3-wood has more loft on it, so it's more of a glance. Just like if you're cutting across the ball, right? You're hitting it with more of a glancing blow. If you have more loft on the club, you're hitting the ball with more of a glancing blow. So it's not going to be the same kind of ratio. All right, so Timothy F says, "Hi Q, I'm having trouble with the start of my downswing. I'm trying to clear my hips early, but arms follow and go out in the steep shaft plane. How can I flatten my arm swing coming down?" Thanks. So Timothy, I don't have time to go through the whole thing. We're already past the time, but go to the move section and work through those videos there. That's all about getting club shallowed out and getting the club squaring earlier so that you can rotate into impact and get forward shaft lane like what you're wanting here. So go to the move course, click the house icon, scroll down on the page. You'll see a list of all the courses that we offer. Click on the move and get started there. So Dylan I says, if you're not taping yourself, you really should be. I've learned so much in a short amount of time. Feeling is not indicative of what's always going on. Dylan, you are exactly right. Thank you for sharing. You have to video your swing. Feel is not real. What you're doing is often not the reality of what's going on. If you've never filmed your swing before, you are probably going to be shocked by what you see on camera. I know the first time I videoed my swing, I was in college actually, and I was shocked by what I saw on video. I had no idea what I was doing, and then everything clicked, and I understood exactly what I needed to do. So, absolutely, people ask me all the time, "What's the best training aid that I can get?" You most likely already have it, and it's your phone. Your phone is one of the best training aids that you can have. You need to be able to see what's going on video and to be able to adapt from that. So, absolutely, most phones these days have excellent cameras in them. Especially iPhones, they have excellent slow motion cameras. Most of the newer, I have the Pixel 3, excellent video camera in it. Really takes some great slow motion video. which I use with myself and students all the time. So yes, absolutely, Dylan, that's a great point. Thanks for sharing. Robert R says, if I come for a private lesson, where are you located? So we are located just north of Orlando. I am actually offering some in-person lessons now, where I'm getting geared up to do that, getting that set up. It used to be my schedule didn't really allow it. It's tough for me still right now, but I'm trying to get to where I can offer them a little bit more. But as Heathrow Country Club is where we will do in-person lessons. Right now, Robin's definitely doing some out there. But if you want to do lessons with me, contact our support, and we'll try to set that up. But it's just support@topspeedgolf.com. You can contact them, and then I'll have them get in contact with me to set something up. But it's just north of Orlando, and you can just do a Google search, Heathrow. It's right off of I-4. It's pretty easy to get to. So check that out if you're interested in coming to do some lessons. If you're I don't know where you're from, but if you're from out of town and you're looking to fly in for lessons, there's an airport that's in Sanford, Florida. It's actually much closer to the golf course than what MCO is, which is the Orlando Big Airport. So if you're looking to, it would probably be better. Now, I believe it's only Allegiant that flies into there. It's kind of a budget airline, but it's definitely a lot closer to the golf course. Much easier to get to from there. All right, so last question here. Larry T says, if my wrists are arthritic and have little movement, how do I get lag? So as I talked about before, lag is coming from just a few things. So one is the thumbs up position. Now, most people can only get about 20 degrees there. So you can see there, if I have my wrist straight up and down, I'm only getting about 20 degrees of lag. So this is club basically straight up and down. I'm only getting about 20 degrees of lag. So for you, luckily, that's only accounting for 20 degrees of the lag. Now, if I shallow that out, look how much lag I have now. This should be a position that you should be able to get into, even if you do have arthritic. It's mainly, I'd imagine, this kind of motion that's stopping you to be able to do that. So let's say that I could only do 10 degrees. If I shallow it out, look, now I have that much, and then I have the momentum that's going on. So that's where lag comes from. You may not be able to get as much as a tour player, but as long as you're generating some lag in the downswing, then that's going to be the best thing for you. You also may want to look at doing some physical therapy. I don't know that much about arthritis, so I don't know. That may not be a possibility. It may not help you, but maybe some physical therapy could help you get a little bit more range of motion with that. Maybe something you could do a couple 5-minute exercises every day to be able to get that a little bit better. But for the most part, that part right there, even if you just get 10 degrees and you use the momentum of the club and you shallow it, you're still going to be able to get plenty of lag there. All right, so we're definitely over time here. Thank you for everybody for joining me. Seems to be a more popular hour for office hours for sure. But thanks for joining me. We'll be back here tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time. So I will talk to you then. Everybody have a good rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time.